stories of Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Splitting you and Matt's tonight was sort of a message to sort of get you guys going, and what was your reaction to that? And then to have a game like this, how satisfying was it?
Yeah, I definitely think it was a little bit of a signal. I think both of us went out there and tried to play our game, play the best we could, and it just so happened to be that both of us ended up, getting some points together. So it worked out.
Wait, what? Sorry. Okay, so Kaprizov's got the interpreter.
Yeah.
And they had the interpreter on speakerphone.
Correct.
Up to the microphone.
Correct.
Is the interpreter working remotely?
Apparently, he wasn't on site. He was not on site.
Why don't they just have an interpreter on staff for one of the most star players in the NHL?
Genius question. Yeah.
Why are you guys?
That's where the budget cuts are. That's where we draw the line for budget cuts.
We got a double flag. Sorry. Why are you guys belaboring the bad?
Wave the flag. Wave the flag.
There's the flag. Oh, what a game! Kaprizov, Dean Evison, Zuccarello.
Wave the damn flag.
There it is.
I'm sorry. I've got questions about this. Why? I mean, the Twins had a full-time interpreter for Tsuyoshi Nishioka that wound up spending half his time in Rochester. But you tell me why. Okay, that dude's getting paid $9 million a year. We can't shave off $50,000 for an interpreter and some per diem for food.
Nobody knows. But they've never had a full-time. They have not had an interpreter for 2 years now, like on staff, and. The dude will show up, I think, after practices like once a month to, hey, Kirill's going to talk after practice. But for the most part, after games, we don't hear from Kirill, and it's very bizarre.
He was also
I don't disagree with your point.
He was very obviously just like making up his own answer because he was speaking while Kirill was speaking. There's no way that he would be able to hear Kirill while he's speaking through speakerphone. So I think he was just like making up his own answers.
I thought when we were there though that he was waiting, right, Dex?
Like the guy?
Yeah, I thought the guy wait.
So they edited it in.
Yes. So that video clip they spliced it together with him because otherwise it would have just been Kirill.
Yeah.
Muted like this. So actually,
kudos
that's to the video editing of the Minnesota Wild department for putting that
the
part
video
on.
editing.
The video editing.
For the audio audience, that's Judd just waving a wild flag.
The state of hockey.
The background right
from
there.
From the 2003 playoff run. Well worn,
oh my God.
By the way. A lot of coffee stains.
I need the bear claw.
Do you have the bear claw? It's in there somewhere.
It's probably in the studio, right? In the main studio? I think it
bear
claw?
Is. Yeah, yep. It's behind, it's on top of the Carlos Gomez huge life.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at it. Okay.
Life size cut out.
I
got 200 pounds.
Cut out.
I got it.
So this is a Feedback Friday here on Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment, therapy, loathing, celebration. And if you want to get your questions in or your critiques, your comments about whatever you want, you can always send us feedback through the Score North app. It's free to download. It's a central hub for everything we do, and there's a feedback tab at the bottom. So all kinds of stuff to get to here, boys, and Judd's keys to a Vikings victory later in the show, Vikings-Packers week. But let's start with this one from Josh Johansson via the Score North app, and he sent this before last night's Wild game, but I think it's still a question we can flesh out here. Should we be worried that Kaprizov will end up being a one-year wonder? Don't get me wrong, I'm drinking the Wild Kool-Aid, but knowing Minnesota sports, I could see Kaprizov being a bust and going on to have an average career in the KHL after his stint with the Wild. Hopefully people feel a little bit better about Kaprizov after that game last night, but where are you guys at with this? There's always a little bit of a risk when you pay a guy after one big season, in which they really had no choice. So what is the percentage chance that he just doesn't pan out as a star player?
It's extremely low. He's going to pan out. Now the question is not, is he going to be a really good player? The question is how good. Like, is he going to be a superstar, upper echelon, top 5 to 8? Is he going to be a top 20 guy? But I am not concerned that he's going to be a bust and in 2 years be back in the KHL. I'm not concerned one bit about that. He's young. He is clearly like, we don't know a lot about him because he doesn't speak English. So it's hard to be like, yeah, I got a good feel for him. But Dex, as far as the talent goes, like when he turns it on, he does things that are special. A guy like Parise, who in his prime was a really solid, good player. You never watched him and are like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. Kirill has that. So yeah, I have no doubt that with proper coaching, proper team, Kirill Kaprizov can be a star player. The question is, can he be a superstar and how good?
Right. Is he going to be Alexander Ovechkin? I mean, that's like probably the highest bar, obviously, for him to be. And I would say maybe the floor of him is Vladimir Tarasenko on the St. Louis Blues. So Tarasenko came in. He took a little bit to get going, but put about 4 or 5 year run there with St. Louis where he was scoring regularly 30 goals. But he had a tendency also to take some nights off. And I think, Kirill, if you've watched Minnesota Wild hockey over the last 20 years, and there's been some good players, but not superstar players, no one has looked this good since Marian Gaborik. I'm a big Kevin Fiala stan, and I like what Fiala brings, and there's noticeable things that he does. It's not even close to what Kirill can bring on his 100th percentile night. So I don't envision him being a bust at all. You have 5 years here to make hay with him. I know a lot of fans wanted to lock him up to those 8 years. But at the same time, if you don't win a cup in these next 5 years, like what's the point? So you have to make this run now, and I think Kirill will not have a sophomore slump. Not at all.
The Hockey Whisperer agrees. So I would even throw Zach Parise out there. Different players, I get it, different level of skill.
Right.
But I almost feel like the floor is a Zach Parise caliber player where, like, Parise was never a top 5 player in the league. No. At his best with the Devils, he might have been flirting with, like, top 10, 15-ish. Because, didn't he have a 40-goal season with the Devils at one point? Just
he's a really good, hard-working player.
Mm-hmm. I think... I guess what I'm trying to say is I think the worst case scenario for Kaprizov is he's only like the 18th best player in the NHL, but I think you'd still take that for 5 years.
We also, and this is true of all of our sports, we also need to come to grips with the fact that once in a while we might get a superstar player. We might actually get one. Like we're afraid of it.
Crazy to think. Yeah.
But it scares us. Like we're like something's gonna go wrong
because then they're gonna leave.
Well, they're gonna leave, or they're gonna get hurt, or like we so badly want one that we don't know how to process it. And this guy might be one. Like I'm not guaranteeing it, but he might be one. And look, they're few and far between. But we need to be. We have to stop being afraid of potential successes.
Speaking of. Last night at Target Center.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Double flag. It's a two-flag Friday. Two-flag Friday. Two-flag Friday.
You got us this.
Yes.
From the Timberwolves.
Yes.
Great guy. Look at that. It's on the other end of the stick.
1:15 to things got a little dicey when the Wolves jumped out to a 20-point lead and then thought that they were good. And at one point, I think San Antonio got it down to 4. Look at that, dude. Jeff Munichie coming through in the clutch, man.
Big time, man. He hooked up my nephew with a custom-made jersey for his 3rd birthday, and he wears it all
around
time.
Good guy.
And now my other nephews just want jerseys. So
he is
Jeff
a great
Munichie,
guy.
if you want like more Wolves jerseys, hit me up, please.
I don't think he can give everyone a free thing, but you can definitely try. Hit him up.
Yeah.
So last night, here's a feedback Friday. We'll use this as kind of a jumping off point. Jesse Hunt on Twitter. Towns' low field goal attempts have been a chronic issue for years. He sometimes even refuses to take control. He's one of the most offensively skilled and efficient players of all time, which sounds crazy. It's not. I'm not saying that he's alpha Michael Jordan or anything, but in terms of like just efficiency and what he can do as a 7-footer, and he shoots like 45% from 3. That's correct. But him consistently applying himself is an area of opportunity, Jesse says. And he said this, I think, toward the end of last night's game. So the bad news was, once again, Towns did not lead the Wolves in field goal attempts last night. That would be 6 for 19 D'Angelo Russell just chucking last night. But it didn't really derail the Wolves. They won by 25 points. Towns had 25 points on 16 shots, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. He also had a block and only 2 turnovers. I thought last night was one of the most complete games he's played all season. And by the way, Anthony Edwards, kind of a meh night in terms of just the box score. Only scored 13 points, only took 11 shots, but I love the fact, and this is where all the people that said Anthony Edwards is basically just Andrew Wiggins. Why would you want a guy that's not interested in basketball, that's a volume shooter? Look at what he did last night, just off of the shot attempts, off of the ball, right? He's grabbing rebounds, he's dishing assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, great defense, at least with the eye test. I mean, he's active. And last night, I know it's the Spurs and they're rebuilding and they're just like probably playing for a high draft pick, but like the last 3 games, the first 45 minutes of the Suns game, and then the last 2 nights here, the back-to-backs, this is the team that I think people expected. 3-point shots coming off the bench in Malik Beasley and Jaden McDaniels, and even Taurean Prince finally hitting threes last night really for the first time all year. So like I could use a few less D'Angelo Russell chucks, but that last night was what you want the Wolves to look like on a regular basis. So bravo.
Yeah. And let's go back to Ant's week too, because Ant's week actually impresses me. The Suns game, he couldn't get shots to fall, and it was far from a perfect game. So I'm not saying he played great, but look at the box score. He did a lot of things. Like he did a lot of things on a night. A lot of guys who are Ant check out, right? It's like, I can't hit a shot. I'm going to keep chucking some, and that's pretty much my night.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he might have had a career high in rebounds. He dished out some assists. Like that box score is really an impressive display for a young guy who loves to shoot. Of my shot's not going. What else can I do? I'm not going to just say, well, too bad, I stink.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came back with a significant game on Wednesday, and I think this week is a really good sign of probably the maturation and where Ant is tracking. But if you just look at the point total, it's like, okay, it's okay, but it's not great. Right. But is he doing other things in the games in which his shot does not fall? And the answer this week was yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really like that. That's huge to me.
In the last 4 seasons, Andrew Wiggins has grabbed 10 rebounds in a game 9 times.
Yeah.
Ant's done it 3 times already in the first month of this season. And again, that's not like the barometer. And Wiggins is thriving now in a just sort of a complimentary role in Golden State, and he's found the places he should be shooting from. It only took 7 years, but I love when you're having an off shooting night. I love how much he can still impact the game offensively, defensively, etc. So maybe the Wolves are finding a little something here. Maybe the Wolves are discovering their winning ways. There it is.
Fire it up.
Just saying.
Do you have both flags together?
Yeah.
It's a two flag
Enlarge the
Friday.
Flag Friday.
Enlarge the screen.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
There you go. I got it.
There you go. Woo, it's fun. There's so many winners in Minnesota. So many winners.
Dude, it's a 2 flag Friday.
Yep, that's right. 2 flag Friday right here on Score North. Coming up next.
Wild, I believe, still second in their division after that win last night. Or
No, they're tied.
They're tied for
they're
first now.
They're tied for first in points, and I believe that they win. Yes, I will say this. In November, the tiebreaker, they're in first place.
You damn right. And
They're
then
first.
after last night, the Wolves are a half game back of the 10 seed of the play-in.
We're coming. There it is. There it is.
Let's get it.
Return to glory. Return to glory with Mark Laurie.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Feedback Friday continues here. Edward Hirschberger via the Score North app. It's a valid question here. We get asked this question. We might as well answer it here. When are you guys going to return to live local programming? All we are left with is the 20-year-old shtick down the radio dial. It's unlistenable. Good news is you don't have to listen to the 20-year-old. It's actually like a 30-year-old shtick. 20 years with a similar schedule. So we don't. I think we could dive into this for a second. We don't do any live radio anymore. You know, when Score North first launched almost 3 years ago, we were doing like 6 or 8 hours of live radio. We were trying to build a digital network while also sort of preserving our live radio schedule, and then when our staff, I mean, you're literally, if you're watching on YouTube or listening on podcast, this is our staff at Score North. We do have it's the three of us. It's Judd, it's me, it's Declan, and then we have a few part-timers too who help us. You know, we've Jason Stormer is an overnight producer at Hubbard. He helps with some clips. We've got some awesome part-time producers that help with, you know, running play-by-play on the weekends on the radio side. You know, Artis Woods, AJ Fredrickson, Manny Hill. But this is the staff at Score North, and so we can't produce 6 to 8 hours of live radio anymore. And for us, it just makes more sense. And like we're just reacting to the audience. You guys are responding to us via podcast and YouTube and social media, and so that's the sort of the beast that we are feeding, and that's where the growth has come for Score North in the last, I don't know, year and a half or so. So we've kind of blasted off in the last year and a half as an on-demand company, and we go live for peak moments of interest. Like you guys were live after the Wild game last night.
Yep.
On Score North social media, not live on the radio, but on Score North social media, Score North YouTube channel, and we go live for Ventline after Vikings games. So we've kind of said it makes more sense for us to be 90% on demand so that you guys can consume us however and whenever you want. And then when there's peak moments of interest, post-game Vikings or big moments, so drafts or whatever, big games, that then we'll go live on the digital platform. So hopefully that answers the question. Judd, do you miss doing a 4-hour live radio show?
No,
on just AM radio with no other way to reach people?
Nope,
I don't either.
I don't miss a 4-hour show.
It's hard. It is hard.
It's certainly a lot of reps.
Well, we were doing 16 segments a day.
Yep.
And, you know, we would have maybe 3 guests, and we would have some built-in daily benchmarks and stuff that we could kind of lean on. But I don't know. When you're doing 16 segments a day, it's really hard to just throw your fastball for all 4 hours, 5 days a week.
Well, you got to mix it up,
52 weeks out of the year.
Come on, you got to mix it up. Off-speed stuff. Your arm gets tired. Right. You have Tommy John. You come back as a slot baller.
You were doing 4 hours for like a year before, because I was doing 3 with Royce.
Dubé and I think they went to 4 hours when Dubé was with me.
Yes,
originally.
So you had a little bit of a head start on the innings load, and I remember the first.
Yeah, I broke down.
Well, so to that point, the first ever Mackey and Judd show, which was now almost 8 years ago after the Super Bowl, because it was 2014, and. We put a lot of, we kind of prepped out, like, what do we want to, for like 2 weeks, we were kind of prepping for what do we want the show to look and feel like. And on that Monday, I got done with that was the first time I had done like the 4-hour show that we were going to do. And I went home and took like a 3-hour nap, woke up, and I was like, holy crap.
This is life.
Got to do it for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the next day. So, I mean, now you guys are still producing, like the 3 of us are doing about 2 hours of on-demand stuff every day, and then you guys are doing an additional hour plus, Judd's hockey show and some of the bonus Purple Daily episodes. So we're still producing, you guys anyways are still producing like 3 hours of podcast and video content plus other video stuff. But we're just doing it in a different way. We're doing it on demand, and we're doing it across different shows. So you can still find us on AM 1500 from 5 to 6, but we're not doing live radio right now. Sorry, I cut you off, Judd.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I think the best thing is, if you like to podcast stuff, you should podcast us, and that's the best way to get us, because I don't think we'll be going back to a full-time AM gig anytime soon.
Yeah, and I was gonna explain, like, here's how you can podcast us, but I'm guessing most of you have already figured it out if you're listening to this.
Yeah,
right
we're
now.
Probably being, yep.
But scorenorth.com is a great place to always find everything we do across the board, podcasts, videos, Judd's written work, etc. So Edward, your question is not on an island. A lot of other people have wondered the same thing, but hopefully you can find our on-demand stuff in a way that replaces the 20-year-old shtick down the dial, as you put it. Ken Tomlin via the Score North app says, question for my favorite Vikings podcast. Based on comments from Jefferson and Thielen this past week and reading between the lines, like Sports Dad has been teaching us to do,
thank you.
Are the frustrations centered on Cousins more than Zimmer, and by extension, Kubiak's offensive philosophy? I encourage you guys to find the press conferences of Jefferson and Thielen, re-listen to them. I believe they're more upset with Cousins' lack of aggressiveness. This is not to absolve Zimmer. I'll stick by my belief that no team with Zim as their head coach can win a Super Bowl, but I believe the narrative that we've all assumed about Diggs and this year with Thielen and Jefferson might need to be re-examined towards Kirk.
Okay, so this is actually, it's a really good point because I completely understand his point, but here's where it gets to be really like a sleuth situation of what's being said here. Yes, they're frustrated with Kirk's lack of aggressiveness, and so is Diggs. They also know, though, that because of how Kirk is wired, which is not exactly a top-notch athlete, and I mean wired brain-wise. I don't mean body-wise, because he's got the arm. That he needs to be empowered, and so the real problem lies with their frustration with the coaching staff that doesn't empower Kirk. And then they did against the Chargers, and you saw like that. This whole notion of Zim called Kirk in and said, throw the ball more, take some chances. And Kirk's like, okay, that's great. Like this is, I'm not trying to be a complete jackass when I say Mike Zimmer is telling fairy tales at the podium. Like he's making up what he wants you to believe. And to that question, it does make it sound like, oh yeah, Kirk's not being aggressive. It's all Kirk's fault. It's a constant pass the buck. But if you really examine it, it starts with, and this goes back to Diggs too. I'm not saying any of these guys have huge respect for Kirk, so don't hear me wrong. I don't think they love him, but they know that it starts with coaching. And so that's where I totally get the question. I applaud it. I like you trying to sleuth here, but it goes so deep into the weeds. And the fact that the Chargers game to me is the biggest. Now, the game was fun, but it's the biggest indictment. It's the indictment of, oh, so this is what happens when the gloves come off and you actually tell Kirk, in Kirk's ear, Kirk, here's what we're doing here. Yeah. So that's why I'm not absolving Kirk Cousins, but I am saying that this starts with coaching.
And then if I think I agree. Everyone kind of knows that, hey, Kirk is just sort of I just work here guy, and he needs to be given the green light to do certain things. And I think his natural instinct is to avoid making a mistake, right? He's trying to avoid making a mistake because he's very much a particular, structured, perfectionist type personality.
No question.
He'd be investing 70% bonds in his 401k like that. Like just let's slow and stay easy, no risk, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of an indictment that the direction has to come through the coaches to get the quarterback to find Justin Jefferson more often.
Yep.
That conversation doesn't happen with the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Russell Wilson needs permission to find DK Metcalf more. What? No, just go find him. He's your top wide receiver. But Jefferson and Thielen, especially Thielen, who's been around longer, he knows that, all right, to get the right buttons pushed, then, okay, we got to make sure Zimmer is driving this and Kubiak. So I think that makes sense. Brady Bogenreef via the Score North app says, I think Kirk Cousins doesn't take shots because he is more concerned with his own stats instead of being concerned with winning games. Statistically, he's often mentioned with some of the best quarterbacks, and I think he plays selfishly so he doesn't mess that up for himself. I don't know if this is 100% true, but I will say that all these stats that you can find, and every single day you're going to see something on Twitter or something that says Kirk Cousins is ranked with these great quarterbacks in this statistical category.
Yes.
And almost all of the other quarterbacks that he's ranked with in completion percentage all time or passer rating or whatever other stats come out, the Bradys and the Brees and the Rodgers and the Mannings, et cetera, right?
Yes.
Those guys' teams all have ridiculously good winning records. Cousins is 500 in his teams are 500. So they're all putting up the same stats, but these guys over here, all of them are like 70 games over 500, 100 games over 500 in their careers. Mm-hmm. Is it just that those guys all got super lucky and they have amazing offensive lines and better coaches and there's probably some of that, but I've always thought that there was something to Kirk's game that led to great stats but not team success, whether it's his leadership, which we've seen there's definitely some holes in his leadership that now we've seen publicly this year. There's also the average depth of target for Kirk this season is like third from the bottom of the league. It's a lot. His completion percentage is high, which helps your passer rating be higher. But it's like 6 yards average depth of target. Lamar Jackson is 10 yards average depth of target. So, I think he leans toward. Let's just make sure. I don't think it's because he wants to pad his stats. I think it's just I don't want to throw an interception that's going to derail the team. And it's like, well, you're good enough to still throw the ball down the field and not throw picks. What do you guys think?
I think Kirk very much needs to be told what to do. Kirk is so the stats thing makes sense because it does come off that way, I think, at times for sure. The garbage time success drives you crazy because it's like, well, these mean nothing. Mm-hmm. But I think it's deeper than that with Kirk. I think when you look at how Kirk leads his life and talks about things outside of football, I think his play at times is a reflection of who he is, which is again why he needs to be right or wrong. And it's probably wrong, but he needs to be empowered and he needs to be coddled and he needs to be, Kyle Shanahan loved him in part because he had the physical abilities and he could take instruction. And when you said, Kirk, here is what I want you to do. Kirk, as far as mentally, again, on and off the field, he's the corporate quarterback and he plays the role. That's his role. He happens to have the physical gifts to be good, but you can't, you literally have to wind him up to get that. Like you can't just be like, oh, Kirk, you go play. The man cooks meat that has no texture to it. Like he in some ways.
That was one Instagram photo. Okay.
This goes this goes so much deeper about who Kirk is as a person, I think, than, he's trying to just pad his stats. But you know what? I think if you embraced it and you got the most from it, I'd be curious to see the complete picture.
Yeah. Brady Bommersbach via the Score North app says, why haven't we heard anything about Kellen Mond? Will we draft a quarterback this? So just for some context here, Spielman has been seen scouting some of the college quarterbacks in this year's draft class, which, teams do that. Will we draft a quarterback this year with Spielman scouting all these college guys? If so, it seems like a huge waste of a pick, Kellen Mond, that is. So why don't you think we've heard anything about Kellen Mond? There's been no reporting on him. He's not active on game days.
He's not active on game days, and because the availability to practice at this time of year is basically stretching in individual drills, and I'm sure he's at all those drills, but you don't see him throwing passes. Mm-hmm. I honestly think that while I think you could probably raise a little bit of a red flag about the fact that he can't be active, I personally have not. To me, it's not that big a deal. But I think that this was the intention. And before we complain too much, remember, because we've had this discussion before on this show, there is something to be said for taking shots at quarterbacks, accumulating them, and then allowing it to play out. So Mond's a third-round pick. Now, when we're talking about Wyatt Davis, a third-round pick who's a guard, I'm like, that's weird. Like, this guy I thought was going to play, and he's not playing, and you clearly don't like him. I feel differently about quarterbacks because it's such a potentially unique position. And a lot of times, if you're like, we're going to hurry this guy, it actually hurts him. Mm-hmm. So the Mond thing, the Mond thing, among the many things that really bother me about the 2021 Vikings, Phil, the Mond thing is not high on my list. I almost agree with allow it to play out. And my only concern is this: who in that building is teaching him? Because I have no quarterback faith.
And think about this. They've had to do they've already done like an emergency week of self-scouting. They've had to figure out, how do we get the ball to Justin Jefferson more with our current franchise quarterback that makes $35 million. All the bandwidth that they're putting into the current offense and trying to fix it mid-season on the fly. Do they really have enough attention span and bandwidth to develop Kellen Mond in the right way? It's not to say that, who's the best, like the Rams, I'm trying to think of some of the best offenses. They're going to be focused on their number one quarterback and their number one offense. But I just feel like the Vikings in particular, with a 34-year-old first-time play caller and offensive coordinator, there's probably not as much time being spent developing Mond as there would be in other situations.
Good point.
So, Brian Hoganson on Twitter, he asks this: if the Twins trade Byron Buxton, what's the point of following the Twins anymore? Declan?
It's a good one. I have been very sour on the Twins for the majority of the last season because it's just been such a disappointment given their expectations, right? If they trade Buxton, that is, I wouldn't say it's a PR nightmare because I think there's a lot of fans who do feel the way that I do, that Phil has over this ball club over the last year. But if they trade Byron Buxton, I mean, that's the writing on the wall. This team's not going to be relevant for probably 3 to 5 years. Best case scenario is some of these pitchers develop. Joe Ryan and Billy Ober hit. Maybe you find a nice free agent or trade, and that bumps you up to maybe being a competitive 500 ball club. But I think that's your best case scenario going into 2022. If they trade Byron Buxton, I think that says everything. That this is going to be a long rebuild for the Twins.
It is. I'm still trying to wrap my head around. 2 years ago, the Twins had the best power hitting team in baseball history. They had the best home run hitting team in baseball history, and Nelson Cruz was old, but that was pre Josh Donaldson signing, right? All those guys were basically in their prime or emerging into their prime, right? It was Buxton, it was Sano, these cornerstone players, Kepler, that were supposed to carry your franchise, Jorge Polanco. I could keep going here. And of course, Trevor Larnach on the way and Alex Kirilloff on the way. And it's like, and those guys are like, Kirilloff, I think, is going to be a really good player for the Twins. So I'm not saying that they're completely barren. But how do you go from where they were 2 years ago, making the playoffs again in 2020? And now Brios is gone. Nelson Cruz is 40. And even if he resigns, he's not going to resign, but like he's gone. And you might trade Buxton. You are literally walking into a 5-year rebuild. If you trade Buxton, shut it down for the next 4 to 5 years. Unless you can go find like 3 or 4 starting pitchers in free agency or via trade or guys that are going to just like pop up from the minor league system. So, dude, to answer your question, Brian, if the Twins trade Buxton, what's the point of following this team anymore? I would say check back in 2024 if they trade Buxton. So, Joe, what do you think?
Here's what I think. Bailey Ober at home. How does he train? What's his dog's name? And let's talk to the Ober family. Here's what else I think. Joe Ryan has been a revelation. Replacing Jose Barrios, no problem. Leave it to Ryan.
How does he get his hair to look like that?
Is it mousse? Is it gel? Is it some sort of hairspray
How
product?
often does he condition?
How does he keep that mustache in such great shape?
Royce Lewis hasn't played in 3 years, but look how fresh he is.
Look at this 300 game.
Yeah. He's been spending a lot of time honing his bowling motion.
He's a +3 handicap.
Yep. Who needs Byron Buxton when you've got Alex Kirilloff? Next, we talk to the Twin Slugger.
Dude, oh my God.
That's all I got for you.
One final one here before we get to Judd's Keys. Pulford Skoll, our buddy on YouTube, comments, what's the celebration for when you guys hit 20,000 YouTube subscribers on the Purple Daily channel? So we did say if we hit 50,000, which was going to be a stretch by the end of the year, that Declan was going to brush and ride a horse, I believe. Yeah,
I was looking forward to
that. By the way, we're actually about to hit 30,000 subscribers between the two channels, Purple Daily and Score North, which is pretty. I think our goal was 20 by the end of the year. We're going to hit like 30.
Nice.
Which is pretty awesome.
Very nice.
So I think we might need to come up with something. I don't want to just keep putting Declan on horses, though, because I feel like...
I mean, as much as I'm all in on Adam Page and this cowboy bleep, I'm not
that's
getting
right.
on a damn horse.
Mr. Cowboy bleep, not going to go near a horse?
Declan's starting to embrace
I don't know, though. That horse riding through downtown Minneapolis that they played on the Jumbotron at Target Center on Saturday, I was kind of like...
Oh, my God, it's going to come in the arena. Oh, my God.
That's pretty cool. I was like, is it coming in? Is it actually coming in? Thank God I was like... I was in section 105, so I was at least a whole row up from the floor, but yeah, it was a little scary.
Crying.
Yeah,
all right, so here's the homework assignment for the listeners for next week's Feedback Friday. What are some ideas? What do you want to see Judd do? What do you want to see me do if we hit? Let's say if we hit 30,000 combined subscribers by the end of the year, how do you want us to celebrate? Is it 3 Flag Friday? Is it Declan on two horses, bareback?
Is there Score North flag?
I don't think we have
the Wolves flag.
We got a T-shirt we could put on a stick for you. T-shirt on a stick is about the best we can do.
Okay.
Or a stocking cap on a stick.
Oh, I could use a stocking cap.
I love me a good stocking cap.
Give me a stocking cap.
It's cold here, man. It's freezing.
Yeah, it's gotten cold. Heat's
it
on.
It's nipply.
Heat's on in this house.
See you guys in a couple weeks. Make my return visit. Of course, plopped right in the middle of December like an idiot.
Yeah.
Should have come back in July, but here we are.
Yep.
So let's get to